Have you ever imagined having everything you've always dreamed of? Unlimited wealth, absolute power and wisdom that makes the whole world bow at your feet? It sounds like the perfect script for a successful life, doesn't it? But what if I told you that this very story ends in tragedy and division? Well, this is the story of King Solomon. In ancient Israel, around the year 1000 BC, a boy was born destined to become one of the most emblematic figures in history. Solomon, the son of King David and Bathsheba, came into the world amidst controversial circumstances. His birth was preceded by a scandal that shook his father's reign, involving adultery and the death of Bathsheba's first husband, Uriah the Hittite. From an early age, Solomon demonstrated sharp intelligence and wisdom beyond his years. He grew up closely observing his father's decisions and learning the intricacies of politics and governance. Although he was not the firstborn, the young prince soon distinguished himself among his brothers for his insight and ability to handle complex issues. Solomon's path to the throne, however, was not without obstacles. As the youngest son, he was not David's natural successor. His older half-brother, Adonijah, was considered by many to be the legitimate heir. The tension between the brothers grew as David's reign came to an end, with Adonijah taking steps to secure his position as the future king. It was at this critical moment that the influence of Bathsheba and the prophet Nathan proved crucial. Realizing Adonijah's machinations, they acted quickly to remind King David of his earlier promise to make Solomon his successor. This timely intervention changed the course of Israelite history. David, recognizing Solomon's wisdom and potential, made the decision to appoint him as his successor. This choice was not just a matter of personal preference, but also an act of divine discernment. God himself had promised David that his son would build the temple, a task that Solomon was destined to fulfill. Solomon's coronation was a landmark event in Israel's history. Conducted hastily to avoid a possible coup by Adonijah, the ceremony was led by the priest Zadok and the prophet Nathan. Solomon was anointed king and mounted on David's royal mule, a powerful symbol of his legitimacy as heir to the throne. The people of Jerusalem received the news of Solomon's ascension with great joy. The streets of the city echoed with the sound of flutes and the clamor of the crowd, celebrating the beginning of a new era. This demonstration of popular support was crucial in consolidating Solomon's position as the new monarch of Israel. The early days of Solomon's reign were marked by decisive actions to secure his authority. With wisdom and firmness, he dealt with the remaining threats to his rule, including Adonijah and others who had supported his attempted usurpation. These actions, though at times severe, were necessary to establish the kingdom's stability. As Solomon settled onto the throne, he began to implement policies that would strengthen Israel both internally and externally. He reorganized the kingdom's administration, appointing competent officials and establishing an efficient tax collection system. These measures laid the groundwork for the prosperity that would come to characterize his reign. One of Solomon's first significant actions was to strengthen Israel's alliances with neighboring nations. He sealed a treaty with Egypt through his marriage to the Pharaoh's daughter, a union that brought political and economic benefits to Israel. This strategic alliance helped secure the southern borders of the kingdom and opened new trade routes. The young king also dedicated himself to expanding and strengthening the Israeli army. Recognizing the importance of military strength for the kingdom's security and influence, Solomon invested in chariots and cavalry, elements that his father David had neglected. This military modernization put Israel on equal footing with the regional powers of the time. In parallel with military and diplomatic issues, Solomon initiated an ambitious building program. Cities were fortified, palaces were erected, and the kingdom's infrastructure was significantly improved. These works not only beautified the kingdom, but also strengthened its strategic and economic position. However, Solomon's greatest construction project was yet to come. The young king began planning the construction of the temple in Jerusalem, thus fulfilling the promise made by God to his father David. This monumental undertaking would be the pinnacle of his reign, a symbol of Israel's glory and the people's devotion to the God of their ancestors. As Solomon consolidated his reign, his reputation for wisdom began to spread beyond Israel's borders. Leaders and wise men from other nations began to seek his guidance and counsel. This growing fame set the stage for the extraordinary events that would mark the next phase of his reign, including an encounter with God himself that would change the course of his life in the kingdom of Israel forever. Solomon's reign was entering a new phase, marked by an extraordinary event that would define the course of his life in the kingdom of Israel. One night, while the young king was sleeping in Gibeon, where the principal high place of worship was located, God appeared to him in a dream. This divine visit was not only an honor, but a crucial test of the character and priorities of the monarch. In this supernatural encounter, God made Solomon an unprecedented offer. "Ask what you want me to give you." It was a proposal that could tempt any ruler to seek personal riches, longevity, or power over his enemies. However, Solomon's response revealed a maturity and a deep understanding of his responsibility as the leader of God's chosen people. With humility and wisdom, Solomon acknowledged the greatness of God's mercy toward his father David, and the immense responsibility that now rested on his own shoulders. He saw himself as a little child, inexperienced in the art of governance, before a people so numerous that it could not be counted. This awareness of his own inadequacy in the face of the monumental task ahead shaped his request. Instead of seeking personal benefits, Solomon asked God for an understanding heart to judge your people, that I may discern between good and evil. This request for wisdom and discernment greatly pleased God. Solomon's choice demonstrated his understanding that the true power of a leader lies not in strength or wealth, but in the ability to serve and guide his people with justice and understanding. Impressed by Solomon's choice, God not only granted his request for wisdom but also promised to give him what he had not asked for: riches, honor, and, if he walked in God's ways, a long life. This divine blessing laid the foundation for the extraordinary reign to come, a reign characterized by unparalleled wisdom and unprecedented prosperity. The wisdom granted to Solomon soon manifested itself. Shortly after his return to Jerusalem, the king faced a case that would test his discernment and justice. Two women, both prostitutes, came before him with a dispute that seemed impossible to resolve. Both claimed to be the mother of a living baby, while accusing the other of having the dead child. The case presented an apparently insoluble dilemma. There were no witnesses, nor physical evidence to prove the truth. It was one woman's word against the other's, in a situation where the life of an innocent child was at stake. The way Solomon handled this case would become legendary, demonstrating a wisdom that went beyond mere intellectual knowledge. With a clever and bold strategy, Solomon proposed a shocking solution: to split the living child in half with a sword, giving half to each woman. This seemingly cruel proposal was not a real sentence, but a brilliant psychological test to reveal the true maternal heart. The reaction of the two women to this proposal unequivocally exposed the truth. The true mother, driven by a deep and instinctive love, immediately relinquished her claim, pleading for the child to be given alive to the other woman. In contrast, the false mother agreed to the division, revealing a lack of compassion and genuine love for the child. Through this ingenious strategy, Solomon was able to discern the truth and deliver the baby to its true mother. This judgment became instantly famous throughout Israel. The people were amazed by the wisdom and discernment demonstrated by their young king. The news of this case spread rapidly, solidifying Solomon's reputation as a wise and just judge. The respect and fear for the king grew as the people saw that the wisdom of God was in him to execute justice. The fame of Solomon's wisdom began to spread beyond the borders of Israel. Leaders and wise men from other nations began to seek his guidance and counsel. His ability to resolve complex disputes and offer deep insights in various areas of knowledge attracted the attention of rulers and scholars from distant lands. This growing reputation not only elevated Solomon's prestige, but also brought diplomatic and economic benefits to Israel. Neighboring nations sought alliances and trade agreements, drawn by the stability and prosperity of the kingdom under the leadership of such a wise king. Israel's influence in the region grew, not through military strength, but through the power of wisdom and good governance. As Solomon applied his divine wisdom to state affairs, the kingdom of Israel flourished. His efficient administration, combined with judicious decisions on economic and diplomatic issues, laid the groundwork for an era of unprecedented prosperity. Trade flourished, agriculture thrived, and the arts and sciences found an enthusiastic patron in the wise king. Solomon did not keep his wisdom to himself. He began to compile proverbs, observations, and teachings that would later form a significant part of Hebrew wisdom literature. These writings, which encompassed themes from personal ethics to state governance, would become a treasure of practical wisdom for future generations. With the kingdom in peace and prosperity, and his reputation for wisdom firmly established, Solomon turned his attention to the project that his father, David, had longed to accomplish: the construction of a permanent temple for the God of Israel. This monumental undertaking would be the pinnacle of his reign, a tangible symbol of God's glory and the devotion of the chosen people. With the kingdom of Israel flourishing under his wise leadership, Solomon focused on a long-awaited project: the construction of the temple in Jerusalem. This monumental endeavor was not just a personal desire of the king, but the fulfillment of a divine promise made to his father David. The temple would be the tangible symbol of God's presence among his people, and a landmark in Israel's religious history. Preparations for the construction of the temple began on a grand scale. Solomon mobilized resources from all over the kingdom and beyond, demonstrating his diplomatic skill by forming strategic alliances to obtain materials and skilled labor. A particularly significant agreement was established with Hiram, king of Tyre, known for his skilled craftsmen and the quality of his cedar wood. The construction of the temple was a project of impressive proportions. Located on Mount Moriah in Jerusalem, the chosen site held deep significance in Israel's religious history. The structure itself was an architectural marvel, with carefully planned dimensions and intricate details reflecting the greatness and holiness of the God of Israel. The interior of the temple was adorned with the most precious materials available. Gold, silver, bronze, and noble woods were used in abundance. The craftsmanship was of unprecedented quality, with elaborate carvings, sculpted cherubim, and meticulous attention to detail. The most holy place, the most sacred part of the temple, was lined with pure gold, symbolizing the divine presence. The construction of the temple was not only an architectural feat, but also an impressive logistical undertaking. Solomon organized a rotating work system, sending thousands of men to Lebanon in shifts to cut wood. This system allowed the project to move forward rapidly without overburdening the kingdom's workforce. After 7 years of intense work, the temple was finally completed. The dedication of the temple was a nationally significant event. Solomon gathered the elders of Israel, the leaders of the tribes, and the heads of families for a grand ceremony. The Ark of the Covenant, symbolizing the presence of God and the covenant with Israel, was solemnly brought into the Holy of Holies. During the dedication ceremony, Solomon offered a powerful prayer, acknowledging God's greatness and his faithfulness to the promises made to David. He asked for divine blessing upon the temple and upon the people of Israel. The divine response was immediate and spectacular. Fire descended from heaven and consumed the sacrifices, and the glory of the Lord filled the temple. With the completion of the temple, Solomon turned his attention to other construction projects. He built a magnificent royal palace that took 13 years to complete. This complex included not only the royal apartments, but also rooms for the administration of the kingdom and the famous House of the Forest of Lebanon, known for its architectural grandeur. Alongside the constructions in Jerusalem, Solomon undertook an ambitious urban development program throughout the kingdom. Cities were fortified, new settlements were established, and the country's infrastructure was significantly improved. These works not only beautified the kingdom, but also strengthened its strategic and economic position. One of Solomon's most notable achievements was the development of diplomatic and trade relations with distant nations. His alliance with Egypt, sealed by marriage to the pharaoh's daughter, opened new trade routes. Agreements with the kingdom of Tyre ensured access to precious materials and skilled artisans. These international connections brought wealth and influence to Israel. The expansion of trade under Solomon's reign was remarkable. The king established a merchant fleet at Ezion-Geber on the Gulf of Aqaba, which made regular trips to Ophir, bringing back gold, precious woods, and rare stones. This maritime trade, combined with control over land routes, transformed Israel into a center of international commerce. The economic prosperity of Israel during Solomon's reign reached unprecedented levels. Silver, it is said, became as common in Jerusalem as stones, and cedar as abundant as sycamores. This wealth allowed Solomon to undertake ambitious projects and maintain an unparalleled, luxurious court. The Kingdom of Israel experienced significant territorial expansion under Solomon's rule. Through strategic alliances and demonstrations of strength, he extended Israel's influence from the Euphrates to the border with Egypt. This expansion not only increased Israel's prestige, but also secured control over important trade routes. Solomon's efficient administration was key to Israel's economic strengthening. He divided the kingdom into 12 administrative districts, each responsible for providing provisions for the royal household during 1 month of the year. This system not only ensured a steady flow of resources to the court, but also promoted economic development across all regions of the kingdom. With the kingdom secure, prosperous, and influential, Solomon had fulfilled and surpassed the expectations placed on him as David's successor. The temple was built, trade flourished, and Solomon's wisdom was recognized internationally. However, this peak of glory and prosperity would only be the prelude to a new phase in his reign, marked by unexpected challenges and far-reaching consequences for the future of Israel. Solomon's reign reached its zenith, marked by unprecedented prosperity and fame in Israel's history. The wealth of the kingdom grew exponentially, transforming Jerusalem into one of the most opulent cities of the ancient world. Gold flowed abundantly into the royal coffers, coming from tributes, trade, and successful maritime expeditions. Solomon's court became a spectacle of luxury and splendor. The royal palace, an architectural masterpiece, was adorned with the most precious materials. Golden shields decorated the walls, and a magnificent collection of thrones and pure gold utensils dazzled visitors. The royal table was laid with gold dishes, and even the most mundane objects in the palace were made of precious metals. The fame of Solomon's wisdom and wealth spread far beyond the borders of Israel, attracting visitors from distant lands. Monarchs, diplomats, and scholars traveled great distances to witness the glory of his kingdom and seek his counsel. Each visit reaffirmed Israel's position as a cultural and economic power in the region. Among the most notable visitors was the Queen of Sheba. Her visit to Jerusalem became legendary, symbolizing the reach of Solomon's influence. The queen came with a large entourage, bringing lavish gifts and a list of complex questions to test the king's wisdom. The meeting between these two monarchs was a diplomatically significant event, blending politics, trade, and cultural exchange. The Queen of Sheba was impressed not only with Solomon's wisdom, but also with the magnitude of his wealth and the efficiency of his administration. She marveled at the organization of the court, the grandeur of the buildings, and the abundance that permeated every aspect of life in Jerusalem. Her testimony, recorded in the scriptures, attests that the reality exceeded the rumors she had heard. The luxury of Solomon's court extended beyond the palace walls. The king was known for his fleet of chariots and horses imported from Egypt, a symbol of power and prestige at the time. His stables housed thousands of horses, and his chariots were famous for their quality and adornment. The prosperity of Solomon's reign was not limited to royalty. The people of Israel also enjoyed a period of unprecedented abundance. The scriptures recount that Judah and Israel were as numerous as the sand by the seashore. They ate, drank, and were happy. This description paints a picture of a nation that enjoyed not only security, but also material comfort. In addition to his fame as a ruler and wise judge, Solomon stood out as a prolific author and patron of the arts and sciences. He is credited with composing thousands of proverbs and songs, many of which have been preserved in the books of Proverbs and Ecclesiastes, as well as in the Song of Songs. Solomon's proverbs covered a vast range of themes, from practical advice for everyday life to profound reflections on the nature of wisdom and justice. These short, memorable sayings became a source of moral and practical guidance, not only for the Israelites, but for future generations across many cultures. The Song of Songs, attributed to Solomon, is a unique work in biblical literature. This lyrical poem celebrates romantic love with an intensity and beauty that continue to captivate readers to this day. Its inclusion in the biblical canon is a testament to the breadth of Solomon's intellectual and artistic interests. The Book of Ecclesiastes, also associated with the Solomonic tradition, offers a more somber reflection on the nature of life and the search for meaning. This philosophical text explores themes such as the vanity of human achievements and the importance of finding contentment amid life's uncertainties. In addition to his own works, Solomon was an enthusiastic patron of knowledge in all its forms. His court attracted wise men and scholars from various disciplines. The king was known for his interest in botany and zoology, having reportedly studied and described various species of plants and animals. Solomon's reputation as a center of learning and wisdom attracted not only visitors, but also an influx of knowledge from other cultures. Ideas and information from Egypt, Mesopotamia, and beyond found their way to the Israelite court, enriching the intellectual heritage of the kingdom. Solomon's reign marked the cultural and intellectual peak of ancient Israel. His court became a center of learning and creativity, where literature, music, architecture, and the sciences flourished. This rich and stimulating environment produced works that would continue to influence thought and culture for millennia. However, even at the height of his glory and fame, subtle signs of future challenges began to emerge. Maintaining such a luxurious court and ambitious building projects required immense resources. The tax burden on the people increased, and the seeds of discontent began to be sown. Additionally, exposure to foreign cultures and religions through trade and diplomacy would have unexpected consequences for the kingdom's future and for Solomon himself. Solomon's reign, which had reached the pinnacle of glory and prosperity, began to show signs of decline in its later years. This period marked a dramatic transition, with internal and external challenges threatening the stability of the kingdom he had built with such care. One of the most significant factors in Solomon's decline was his policy of marrying foreign women. Initially, a diplomatic strategy to strengthen international alliances, this practice ultimately had profound and unexpected consequences. The royal harem grew exponentially, including 700 wives of royal lineage and 300 concubines, many of whom were from neighboring nations with different religious traditions. The influence of these foreign women over Solomon proved to be more powerful than anticipated. Gradually, the king began to tolerate and even participate in the worship of the gods of his wives. Altars and shrines for foreign deities such as Astarte, Milcom, and Chemosh were erected in the vicinity of Jerusalem, a practice that contrasted sharply with the exclusive devotion to Yahweh that had characterized the early years of his reign. This shift in Solomon's religious orientation did not go unnoticed. The king's commitment to foreign cults not only contradicted the fundamental principles of Israelite faith, but also represented a breach of the divine covenant that had been the foundation of the monarchy since the days of David. Solomon's apostasy provoked divine wrath, as recorded in the scriptures, and set the stage for the tribulations that would follow. Internally, the kingdom began to experience rising tensions. Maintaining a luxurious court and Solomon's extensive building projects demanded enormous resources. The tax burden on the people significantly increased, generating discontent, especially among the northern tribes. The division between north and south, which had been latent since the days of David, began to deepen. The administration of the kingdom, once praised for its efficiency, started to show signs of strain. The system of administrative districts, while still functional, became a source of resentment as some regions felt overburdened compared to others. The centralization of power in Jerusalem, which had been crucial for the unification of the kingdom, now fueled feelings of marginalization among the more distant tribes. Externally, Israel's enemies, who had been kept at bay during the height of Solomon's power, began to assert themselves. Hadad, an Edomite who had sought refuge in Egypt, returned to lead a rebellion in Edom. In the north, Rezon established himself as king in Damascus, becoming a constant adversary of Israel. These external threats undermined the security and stability that had been hallmarks of Solomon's reign. Perhaps the most significant challenge arose from within the kingdom itself. Jeroboam, a talented official whom Solomon had promoted, became the catalyst for the future division of the kingdom. Prophetically designated by Ahijah as the future ruler of the 10 northern tribes, Jeroboam was forced to flee to Egypt after Solomon attempted to eliminate him. His flight and eventual return sowed the seeds for the division that would materialize after Solomon's death. As these challenges accumulated, the wisdom for which Solomon was famous seemed to have become obscured. The king's decisions, once celebrated for their insight, now appeared to fail to effectively address the kingdom's growing problems. This apparent loss of discernment is reflected in the melancholic reflections attributed to Solomon in the book of Ecclesiastes, where the vanity and futility of human achievements are recurring themes. Solomon's decline was not only personal, but had profound implications for the future of Israel. The unity of the kingdom, achieved with great effort by David and initially strengthened by Solomon, was now under threat. The foundations for the division of the kingdom into Israel, north, and Judah, south, were being firmly established, an event that would occur soon after Solomon's death. After a 40-year reign, Solomon passed away, leaving a complex legacy. His son Rehoboam ascended to the throne, inheriting a kingdom that, although still powerful, was on the brink of a deep crisis. The transition of power proved to be a crucial turning point in the history of Israel. Rehoboam, inexperienced and poorly advised, failed his first major test as king. When the northern tribes, led by Jeroboam, who had returned from Egypt, requested relief from the heavy tax burden imposed by Solomon, Rehoboam responded with arrogance and threats. This response precipitated the division of the kingdom that had been foretold. The 10 northern tribes separated, forming the kingdom of Israel under Jeroboam's leadership, while Rehoboam retained control only over Judah and Benjamin, forming the kingdom of Judah. This division marked the definitive end of the golden age of unified Israel, inaugurated by David and brought to its peak by Solomon. Solomon's legacy remained deeply ambiguous. On one hand, his reign represented the height of Israel's power, wealth, and influence in the ancient world. His wisdom, architectural endeavors, especially the temple, and literary achievements left an indelible mark on Israeli history and culture. On the other hand, the seeds of division and decline sown during his reign had lasting consequences for future generations. The story of Solomon, from his glorious ascent to his turbulent decline, became a powerful reminder in both Jewish and later Christian tradition about the dangers of pride, complacency, and straying from divine principles. His reign remains a fascinating study of the complexities of power, the temptations of wealth, and the transient nature of human glory. The journey of King Solomon, from his ascent to the throne to the decline of his reign, offers us valuable lessons that transcend time. His story is not just a historical account, but a mirror in which we can reflect on our own lives and societies. What reflections can we draw from this millennia-old narrative? How can Solomon's wisdom illuminate our daily decisions? And in what ways do the mistakes of this great king alert us to the dangers we face in our own paths? Think for a moment. If you had the opportunity to ask God for anything, as Solomon did, what would you ask for? Wisdom? Wealth? Power? Your answer may reveal much about your values and aspirations. The construction of the temple reminds us of the importance of dedicating our best efforts to something greater than ourselves. What temple are you building in your life? What legacy do you wish to leave for future generations? Solomon's prosperous reign demonstrates how wisdom and good governance can elevate a nation. How can we apply these principles in our communities, businesses, or families to promote growth and harmony? On the other hand, Solomon's decline warns us about the dangers of complacency and straying from our core values. Where in your life might you be compromising your principles for short-term gains? The story of Solomon challenges us to seek not just success but also integrity, not just wealth but enduring wisdom. It invites us to reflect on the true meaning of a life well lived. Which aspects of Solomon's life resonated with you the most? How can you apply the lessons learned to enrich your own journey? This fascinating account reminds us that even the wisest and most powerful face challenges and make mistakes. True wisdom lies in learning from these experiences and continuing to grow. Now it's your turn to act. How will you incorporate Solomon's wisdom into your life? What changes can you make today to build a lasting legacy? Don't let this story remain just in the past. Use it as a springboard for your own journey of growth and discovery. And remember, like Solomon, you have the potential to positively impact the world around you. If you found this story inspiring and want to continue learning from the great figures of history, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. We have much more fascinating content to share with you. Until the next video, where we will continue our journey through the pages of history, uncovering the lessons that the past has to teach us. Thank you for watching, and remember, true wisdom lies in applying the knowledge we have gained.